In the Star Wars prequels, the romance between Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker and Queen Padmé Amidala unfolds dramatically. Anakin's deep attachment to Padmé and his overwhelming fear of losing her lead him down a dangerous path. His dread is so consuming that he considers betraying the Jedi Order and embracing the dark side, all to avoid separation from his beloved. Tragically, his worst fears come true, resulting in profound emotional torment. Anakin's intense fear of losing Padmé, while extreme, mirrors a common human anxiety. Many of us go to great lengths to keep our loved ones close. Yet the Stoics advise against forming strong attachments to things beyond our control, including other people. Epictetus, for instance, deemed it stupid to wish for our children, spouse, and friends to live forever, as it involves trying to control the uncontrollable and hoping for the impossible. Despite this, the pain of losing loved ones remains a significant struggle, a natural response for many. The mere thought of such a loss often sparks anxiety. However, the Stoics argued that this fear and the subsequent anguish of grief stem from irrational thinking. This video delves into Stoic philosophy concerning attachment, the loss of loved ones, and coping with separation from those we care about. Emotional attachment to others is often celebrated and seen as a natural part of life, largely because our biology encourages us to form bonds with fellow humans. These attachments can range from mild fondness and attraction to intense obsession. If you find this video interesting, please click the like button. Subscribe to the channel to stay with us and support us on the path of sharing valuable and useful knowledge. When we form attachments, we desire the constant presence of those individuals. We want them to stay with us, and the thought of them leaving causes distress. This emotional dependence can lead to significant problems, especially when our attachment becomes too strong. According to the Stoics, tying our happiness to things beyond our control, whether objects or people, places our well-being at the mercy of fate. Fate ultimately determines whether what we cherish remains with us or departs. This makes us vulnerable to the whims of Fortuna, the goddess of chance and luck, who can make us feel joyful one moment and sorrowful the next. We often go to great lengths to avoid parting with the people and things we are attached to, as exemplified by Anakin Skywalker, who betrays the Jedi Order and turns to the dark side to keep Padmé in his life. From a Stoic perspective, Anakin is not free. His desires enslave him, making him a puppet of fate. True freedom, according to the Stoics, means that one's actions are not dictated by external circumstances, attachments, or disabling emotions such as fear, hate, and jealousy. A free person acts from a place of reason, untroubled by emotions related to external things. At its core, the effort to keep those we are attached to in our lives is inherently selfish. When we desire others to remain with us, it's often not for their benefit or the greater good, but to satisfy our own selfish desire to avoid parting from what we cherish. Driven by self-interest, we tend to make unwise decisions solely to fulfill our desires. As Epictetus pointed out, we tend to hate, accuse, and curse whatever obstructs our interests. This is evident in Anakin's actions, as he causes death and destruction to satisfy his selfish needs. Epictetus states, "For its nature is to love nothing so much as its own interest. This to it is father and brother and kinsman and country and God. When, for instance, we think that the gods stand in the way of our attainment of this, we revile even them, cast their statues to the ground, and burn their temples, as Alexander ordered the temples of Asclepius to be burned when his loved one died." We could argue that the widely celebrated romantic love and other strong attachments to things beyond our control are potential recipes for disaster. How much violence and suffering has humanity inflicted upon itself because of these attachments? When a friend dies, a spouse leaves for another lover, or a child wishes never to see you again, it often feels like something that belongs to you has been taken away. The separation from those we care about typically brings a sense of loss, as if we have lost someone. However, from a Stoic perspective, this is a misguided way to view such events. You don't lose people, you return them, as they were never truly yours to begin with. Epictetus advises us to never say, "I have lost it," but rather, "I have returned it." Is your child dead? It is returned. Is your wife dead? She is returned. In the fourth book of Epictetus's Discourses, he thoroughly explains why external factors, such as our children, family members, or spouses, are not within our control and thus not truly ours. Most of what we consider possessions are not genuinely our possessions, as we can lose them in an instant. This understanding helps us recognize the transient nature of such attachments and teaches us to approach loss with acceptance rather than despair. When it comes to the people we're attached to, many of us find ourselves in a gray area. In the days of Epictetus, slavery was commonplace, and people owned others as possessions. Epictetus himself was enslaved before he began teaching philosophy in Rome and later in Nicopolis. Today, slavery is largely abolished, and we generally don't see the people around us, be they employees, family members, or friends, as possessions. However, we often still feel a sense of entitlement to their presence. We expect friends and family to give us time and attention, employees to arrive at work on time, and spouses to avoid actions that make us unhappy. Moreover, we frequently feel connected to the people we care about as if they are a part of ourselves and belong in our lives. Yet, as much as we might believe that someone or something is ours, this is likely not the case. According to Stoic philosophy, external things are never truly ours. If they were, they would always conform to our wishes, never leave us, and no one would be able to take them away. Thus, the Stoics argue that the concept of ownership over external things is merely an illusion and contradicts reality. Epictetus states, "When you want your body to be whole, is the matter under your control or not? It is not. And when you want it to be well, nor that either. And to live or to die, nor that either. Therefore, your body is not your own possession. It is subject to everyone who is stronger than you are. Granted. And your farm, is it under your control to have it when you want, and as long as you want, and in the condition that you want? No. And your paltry slaves? No. And your clothes? No. And your paltry house? No. And your horses? None of these things. And if you wish by all means your children to live, or your wife, or your brother, or your friends, is the matter under your control? No, nor that either." Epictetus also argued that all external things are subject to the revolution of the universe, which is beyond any human's control unless they possess the power of an omnipotent God. When Padmé told Anakin he wasn't all-powerful, he responded, "Well, I should be," realizing that the only way to keep Padmé safe was through ultimate, all-encompassing power. It's no surprise that we often describe romantic love as a passionate, since infatuation with another person uniquely engages our passions, leading to volatile emotional experiences. Today's society tends to view passionate romances positively, with many considering being in love as one of the highest possible states an individual can achieve. However, the ancient Stoics saw passions as problematic. As explored in a previous video titled "How Not to Be Pathetic," the Stoics identified 4 passions: pleasure, appetite, distress, and fear. They believed these passions disrupted rational thinking and inner peace, which are essential for a virtuous and balanced life. Being attached to someone, especially being deeply in love, triggers a symphony of all 4 passions. When a beloved friend is with us, we experience pleasure. When they are absent, we feel an appetite for their presence. The woman a man loves becomes someone he fears losing. If she leaves or dies, he likely endures excruciating pain. According to the Stoics, however, the thoughts that give rise to these passions are based on irrational judgments of the situation. For example, from a Stoic perspective, there is nothing inherently good about someone being in your presence. Likewise, there is nothing inherently wrong about a person leaving or dying. Loss and death are natural parts of life, neutral at best. When we irrationally judge certain things as good and others as bad, we stir up the passions because our thinking deviates from reason. The Stoics aim to uproot these passions by employing reason, seeking to maintain a balanced and rational approach to life's events. Epictetus offers this advice. This is what you ought to practice from morning till evening. Begin with the most trifling things, the ones most exposed to injury, like a pot or a cup, and then advance to a tunic, a paltry dog, a mere horse, a bit of land. Thence to yourself, your body, and its members, your children and wife brothers. Look about on every side and cast these things away from you. Purify your judgments, for fear lest something of what is not your own may be fastened to them, or grown together with them, and may give you pain when it is torn loose. This counsel encourages practicing detachment from the smallest, most insignificant items to progressively more significant aspects of life, including one's own body and loved ones. The goal is to cleanse our judgments and avoid the pain that comes from clinging to things that are not truly ours. When Anakin and Padmé discussed their impossible romance and their feelings for each other, Padmé wanted to follow the voice of reason. Due to Anakin's allegiance to the Jedi Order and her position as a senator, a romantic relationship was out of the question, regardless of their feelings. But Anakin stated, "You're asking me to be rational. That is something that I know I cannot do. Believe me, I wish I could just wish away my feelings, but I can't." But could he? According to Stoicism, with the right mindset, discipline, and practice, it is indeed possible to let go of strong attachments to other people and bear it when someone close to us departs from our lives. Should a practitioner of Stoicism be emotionless in the face of loss? Maintaining equanimity after someone close to us dies is challenging for most people. Freeing oneself from the passions lies at the core of Stoicism, but it is very difficult to accomplish and takes time and tremendous practice. Even ancient Stoic sages like Epictetus, Chrysippus, and Seneca were likely not perfect at it, but at least they strived for it. The Stoic approach to managing emotions and attachments is not about being devoid of feeling, but rather about achieving a balanced state of mind where reason governs our responses to life's events. The Stoics acknowledge what they call proto-emotions, which are feelings that arise automatically and beyond our control. A proto-emotion could be the initial startle when encountering danger or the eyes tearing up upon hearing about a tragedy. Stoicism isn't about repressing these involuntary bodily reactions, but about freeing ourselves from the passions that follow if we think irrationally. One of Seneca's letters provides an interesting perspective on handling the grief of loss. In 41 AD, the new empress Messalina accused Seneca of adultery, an affair some historians have doubted. Initially, the Senate sentenced Seneca to death, but Emperor Claudius commuted this to exile. Seneca then departed to the island of Corsica, where he spent the next 8 years. While in exile, he sent a letter to his mother, Helvia, offering her consolation as she grieved her son's fate. Seneca advised her not to make excuses to weep without limit. He also mentioned that their ancestors reserved 10 months of mourning for women who had lost their husbands, thereby regulating their grief by imposing a limit. This practice reflects the Stoic belief in managing emotional responses through reason and discipline, ensuring that grief and other passions do not overwhelm and control us. By recognizing and limiting the duration of mourning, the Stoics aim to help individuals return to a state of equanimity, emphasizing that while grief is natural, it should not dominate one's life. Seneca wrote, "They did not forbid them to mourn, but they set limits to their grief." For while it is a foolish weakness to give way to endless grief when you lose one of those dearest to you, yet it shows an unnatural hardness of heart to express no grief at all. The best middle course between affection and hard common sense is both to feel regret and to restrain it. Seneca seemed to advocate for a balanced approach to grief, to mourn moderately and within limits. This view on grief differs from the ideal described by Epictetus, who envisioned a dispassionate individual undisturbed by the loss of loved ones. However, the vast majority of people, including Seneca's mother, are not Stoic sages and will naturally experience grief. For them, Seneca offers a realistic approach to dealing with loss, not the complete eradication of passions, but their moderation. Seneca urged his mother to take responsibility for her emotional well-being by studying philosophy and applying its teachings. "This will heal your wounds and take away all your sadness," he wrote. His advice reflects the Stoic belief that philosophy provides tools for emotional resilience and inner peace. Thank you for watching. If you find this video interesting, please click the like button. Subscribe to the channel to stay with us and support us on the path of sharing valuable and useful knowledge.